Our guest tonight is a renowned human rights activist and a North Korean refugee. She defected and became the leading voice of oppressed people around the world. The BBC named Ms. Park one of their top 100 global women, and her personal story of living in tyranny, then eventually escaping to freedom in the United States is one that you'll likely never forget. We are pleased to know that she has given of her time and her experiences to us tonight. Please join me in welcoming Yeonmi Park. Well, let's just start by letting people know a little bit about you. You're now here in the United States and a great advocate for freedom and liberty, of which you started on the opposite side of than most of us in this room did. So tell us a little bit about your experience of growing up in North Korea and what that was like.
Yeah, when I was growing up in North Korea, it's really surreal. I every single day was hating about our enemy, which was American bastards. And I became one of myself. I became American last year. Growing up in North Korea, I still remember the very first thing that my mom taught me as a younger was that she was telling me, don't even whisper because the birds and mice could hear me. If I said one thing wrong in North Korea, it wasn't just gonna kill me, it was going to kill up to like 3 to 8 generations, both of my mom, my father's side. So it was a constant fear living in and not trying to get caught.
Now, you didn't know any different at that point. You went about life as it was presented to you in North Korea. So tell us a little bit about as you grew up and became a member of the education system in North Korea, what that was like.
Yeah, so there is no such a thing called like thinking for yourself or critical thinking in North Korea. Everything was determined by the party. So growing up in North Korea, I had no idea that I was living under a dictatorship. I was an oppressed person. I thought I was living in a socialist paradise where everybody envied us, wanted to come to North Korea. And I believe that my dear leaders were gods who even had the power to read my thoughts. And not really knowing, I've never even seen the map of the world. My teachers told me that, I was my dear leader's like race. I was Kim Il-sung race, and North Korea has a different calendar. North Korea literally calendar begins when Kim Il-sung was born. In a way, living in North Korea is like living on a different planet. We don't even know the existence of internet. And in a complete isolated environment, I was like 100% brainwashed, and I was not able to think for myself in any possible sense.
Now, even under those conditions, kids are kids for the most part, Yeonmi. You must have at some point had some questions as to what you're being taught. Why do we think that way? Why is this way? And whether you went home and asked your parents or asked your teachers about it, what was that experience? Were you able to think for yourself and ask questions, or was that frowned upon?
Yeah, so there was a moment for me. Luckily, I had this moment while I was in the country where when I watched this bootleg DVD coming from China, the movie Titanic. In North Korea, people are not free to watch TV shows as they wish. Everything is really sanctioned by the government. But there are people risking their lives selling these DVDs in the black market. And I was able to get DVD for Titanic, and I watched the movie Titanic in North Korea. And when I was watching this movie, I remember I was so confused because I could not believe why this man dying for love. So something so shameful in North Korea. Love is such a shameful thing. We don't know what Romeo and Juliet is. Nobody celebrates love between human beings. The only love that North Koreans are allowed to celebrate is a dear leader, our love for the Communist Party and the dictator. There's no such a thing called a Valentine's Day in North Korea, and they don't even have a Mother's Day. Kim Jong-un is so paranoid that if people love their mothers, we are not gonna love him as much. So love between human beings is completely denied. I never knew that a human being can love another human being. So when I watched that movie, the Titanic, I think that was really for the first time I got a glimpse of the outside world and felt a little bit of humanity in that. And but still that movie did not really lead me to think, oppression and freedom and going to somewhere that is free country. I did not even know what was out there besides North Korea.
Wow, that's incredible. And yet, getting a hold of that rebel that you might have been as a young person in North Korea, that had to just open up a zillion questions for you, not only about love, but about relationships otherwise, about the freedoms of people to travel, all those kinds of things, I would think.
Yeah, so even abundance. Like this movie was supposedly shoot before, modern century. And looking at just the abundance of things in that movie was so confusing to me because every day my life in North Korea was surviving, looking for grasshoppers and dragonflies to survive. And I couldn't just believe why the people in that movie had so much food. And even like where the scene where the plates coming down and breaking, I couldn't believe how people have that many plates.
You said when you're growing up, you were finding insects in order to survive. That was your learned experience of having enough.
Yeah, so I was born in North Korea in 1993, and there's actually a common saying where socialism works until you run out somebody else's money, right? And that was a perfect case of North Korea. In a way, North Korean system worked somewhat because they were heavily subsidized by Soviet Union. But when the Soviet Union collapsed, they were stopped helping North Korea's economy. So when I was born in the 90s, that's when the massive starvation began. And when I was like toddler in 1995, 1998, that's when more than 3 million people in my region dying from starvation. And when these cadres in the countryside went to the Central Party and talked to the dictator Kim Jong-il at the time, like, dear leader, there are people dying from starvation. What shall we do? And Kim Jong-il literally said, it's easy to do socialism when there are less of them. And so let them die. I think a lot of people don't understand this is the core of the socialism. They hate human beings. They just want us to be enough to be controlled. And when they're more than them, the North Korea's policy till this day is that until the 90% of the population dies off from starvation, they're not gonna intervene. And the only population they want to keeping alive is the 10% that is who are living capital Pyongyang.
I think it's pretty well known. The governmental system over there is much different than ours. Around here, one would think if things got that bad, we have an election coming up in November, and we could vote that guy out of office. There's no option at the national or even local level for that kind of change in North Korea, is there?
No, literally the local elections, the party decides who to vote for the people. They send out the people where we can go vote for. And literally there's one ballot in the voting counter, and it's like open voting where the guards with the guns standing there. So there's no other choice to vote other than person. And even these local officials were all chosen by the Central Party in Pyongyang. So literally the voting and also is a joke. It's a biggest scam.
Wow. Well, that gives us already plenty to think about, and I'm sure you were thinking about that as you learned more about the systems, learned more about life outside of North Korea. At some point, your story goes on to say that you made the decision that you weren't going to stay in North Korea, that you were going to somehow find a way to get out. I know that's a very unpopular stance to have. There might be a lot of people wishing it, but you don't vocalize it over there. And when you actually act upon it, you're putting yourself in extreme danger. Tell us about how you made the decision and how it unfolded.
So in a way, escaping from North Korea is not like even the Korean migrants coming into America. They have a TikTok, they have a map of the world. They go online, they search where to go. It's really so isolated that we don't even have the word for escape. luckily I was in North Korea in a border town. It's the small town called Haesan. And from Haesan at nighttime, I was able to see the electricity lights that time. So if you guys, I don't know, have seen the satellite picture of North Korea at nighttime, it is literally the darkest place in the world right now. In the 21st century, North Korean regime cannot even afford the electricity. So in the darkness, I was looking at the light across the river, which was China, and I thought maybe if I go where the lights were, I could find a bowl of rice. And that little curiosity led me to escape to China in 2007 when I was 13 years old.
Now, escaping to China might not be the route that most of us would think. If you were going to escape a dictatorship in a country where the conditions were so bad, it kind of gives us a little insight, I think, into what you must have been thinking about, that, you know, any place is better than here, even China. What was it like in China compared to your experience in North Korea?
Yeah, so like you said, right, China is not the best option, but that is really the only part of the country that is, next to North Korea. Korea is a peninsula, both sides of the ocean, and China has a long border with North Korea. So when I crossed that Yellow River into China with my mother initially, we were right away sold to human traffickers, and my mother and I were separated, and they sold my mother for $65 and they sold me for over $200, both of us as sex slaves. So that was the fate that waiting for us once we escaped from North Korea to China.
Out of the frying pan into the fire, as we would say here in the United States. What did that do to your mental state? I mean, you were looking for something better. Arguably, you found something different, but certainly no better. In China, you would have had to basically make that attempt to escape yet again, correct?
Yeah, so in China, the hardest part was really not knowing what was waiting for us because we did not know the world like America existed. I mean, we heard the word America, but we thought it was the, really decayed, corrupt capitalist society where people are suffering like literally like hell. So I did not know what was waiting for me. But still, in a way, even as a sex slave, I've got to admit that it's better than dying from starvation. Anything is dying better than dying from starvation. I still remember the moment when we got to China, they raped my mother in front of me, and then they brought us to this called a safe house where they're gonna sell us to those slave traders. They come us, they check our teeth, they check our body and see how much we are worth. And in that point, they don't even like force it to us. They say, well, if you don't like to be slave, you can go back to North Korea. And like literally going back to North Korea means even if the regime don't punish us for some reason, we are still gonna die from starvation within a week. And the one thing that I saw made me not want to go back to North Korea was I looked at something. This lady was throwing something in a can. And I asked her, like, what is it? And she says, like, it's a trash bin. And I couldn't believe you have something to throw away in China. I've never heard such a thing in North Korea. There's nothing to throw away. Even our own hair, when we come out, we need to start as like a firewood to cook things. Literally nothing is wasted in North Korea. And I thought in China, we at least get fed. And that's what we did. We were fed, and that's how we survived in China.
You say your mother went with you. What about the rest of your family? Did you have brothers and sisters and other relatives and friends that you had left behind? And were you able to give them any clue that you were going to basically disappear?
I had a one older sister, and at the time she was 16 and I was 13, and she actually escaped to China first, few days before me. So I was separated from her many years afterwards. And then I had a sick father back in North Korea, but I couldn't tell him that we were leaving because if we disappear, the regime gonna catch him and torture him, obviously. But if he get tortured and if he knew the information that we are living, they would kill him. So it was so dangerous for him to have the information. So I couldn't say goodbye to him at the time. But when I was in China, many months later, I was bought by a human trafficker in China, and he made a deal. If I became his mistress, he said he was going to save my family. So he brought my sick father from North Korea to China, and that's how I saw him again.
Eventually you got out of China. I guess I got to get out of the bad news part because I think it's all tearing up here. Eventually you made your way to the United States. How did that happen? And ultimately compare the time prior to being in the States and then being here.
Yeah, so after 2 years of my slavery, it was 2009. I was 15 years old. I'm sure you guys all know the Beijing Olympic, right? 2008, China had a big Beijing Olympic, and that was really the scariest time as a defector hiding as a refugee. 2009, we met missionaries coming from South Korea. They were Christian missionaries who were risking their lives and rescuing North Korean defectors. I remember the missionary told me, she said, like, there's a way to be free. And I asked, like, what do you mean? Like, I've never heard that vocabulary before. Like, what do you mean I'm gonna be free? And she said, if you go to South Korea, you can watch TVs, you can wear jeans, and nobody gonna bother you for that. So I couldn't believe it, where there's a country where people have a freedom to even choose what they can watch or what they can wear. And I said, like, how do we go to South Korea? And this person said, we had to walk across frozen Gobi Desert from China to Mongolia. And if we don't die for some reason in the cold or in the desert, in Mongolia, they might help us to go to South Korea. So we did cross the frozen Gobi Desert into Mongolia, and we were caught by Mongolian guards. And then eventually, many months later, they helped us to go to South Korea, and that's when I became free in South Korea.
So kind of a circular trip at that point. What were you told about South Korea in North Korea? Was it considered as bad as America? How did they approach that? Because obviously you're on the same peninsula. It's just a line basically that divides the two.
Yeah, so they said in North Korea, my teachers told me that South Korea is colonized by America. There are American tanks everywhere, raping South Korean young girls, getting tortured, and it's so corrupt. People are suffering, they don't get medical help. Children don't have like free education, unlike North Korea, they don't get educated. So it's a living hell. And I mean, when I got to South Korea, I found a paradise. So everything that teachers taught me in North Korea was a lie.
So now you're starting to add this up
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that there is a much, much bigger and better world out there.
Mm-hmm.
How did you come from South Korea to the United States?
So after 5 years, I was studying criminal justice in the university. I had the opportunity to give a speech, and that speech led me to write my first book, In Order to Live. And my publisher, the Penguin Random House, was in New York, and they invited me to New York to write that book. When I came writing that book, I thought I want to continue my university education because I was almost done with my bachelor degree. And then they said, oh, there is a great school in New York. Why don't you go to Columbia? You can transfer to Columbia. So I thought, what a dream it is, and I from North Korea as a sex slave, and I have a chance to go to Ivy League school. So I applied to Columbia, and after many, many process, I was accepted. So I came to America to write my first book at the same time studying at Columbia University, and that's how I got to this country.
So as a university student in the US, as opposed to the other student life you knew in North Korea,
Mhm.
What struck you most about the education system in the United States?
I don't know if you can believe it. I could not believe what I saw at Columbia. Literally, the first day I got there at orientation, the instructors literally were teaching exact same things that my North Korean teachers taught me. The professors at Columbia said that all the evil exists in the world, all the problem that we have right now in the world is because of greedy capitalism and because of American capitalists and white men. And exactly the same thing that North Korean teachers taught me. It was a full-blown brainwashing was happening at Columbia, and they went even above that. It was not just like they were demonizing America or capitalism and free market, but they were also demonizing any truth. Like they said, there is no difference between women and men. You know, anybody, however you feel, you can be the man or girl. They taught me something called the gender fluid and thousand different pronouns. And then I met my classmates at Columbia and telling me how they're oppressed. So I found an interesting word that I never thought it was gonna be. I thought this was the most blessed generation of our time. They have the most information, most liberty, and yet they feel they are the most oppressed. And they are so bitter about this country and freedom they are having in America.
That's an interesting perspective to hear coming from someone who came from such circumstances as you did. Um, if it were me thinking about that experience, I would think at some point when I realized what you just articulated, Yemi, that a little bit of fear would have welled up in you. Like, did I really get as far away from North Korea mentally as I thought I did?
Well, I feel that every single day right now living in New York City. Well, I don't have to be afraid of the birds and mice hearing my whisper, but literally I going on a subway in the morning to go to work, I feel in danger. I really don't feel safe. At any moment, a crazy person can come stab me or rape me and push me to the track. So besides the ideological battle and brainwashing is here, but also physically is not safe in America. And but the thing is, the beauty of America is that there are 50 different states. Unlike North Korea, it's ruled by one central government. And in these 50 different states, they all have different rules, right? And that's where I find hope in America. Even though New York is so bad, I cannot believe how bad it is right now. But there are different states where I can go to, and for that, I believe in America because it's the United States of America. It's not one America. It has a 50 different states inside it.
In North Korea, you obviously all were taught that you had to think the same way, the same thoughts. Every everything about the government was great. There was no voicing opposition. There was none of that. Obviously, you see here in America right now a very divisive time, a time when we're separated into whether you call it left and right or red and blue or however they characterize it for you. Um,
Mhm.
what does that make you feel good or not? I mean, on the one hand, there's the freedom of thinking. On the other hand, we're at each other's throats all the time.
This, in a way, this is the perfect time for a dictatorship to rise because when people are divided, that's when dictators get empowered. That's how they get power. People really don't understand. In North Korea, they plant this idea of paranoia. They say spies are everywhere. You know, they literally say spies are in the air that we breathe, under the ground. You never know where the spies are. That's how they make everybody paranoid and not trusting each other. They plant spies like every 3 person, everybody spied on and spying somebody. That's how the system works. And now in America, in a way, voluntarily, people are tearing each other apart. And when we don't trust each other, that's when I understand the prosperity cannot work. What was magical about coming to free country like America was that there's a trust. I can order an Uber. I can get in the Uber. and trust that this guy not gonna kill me and rob me. I can order pizza and trust this person is gonna put good food in it, not killing me from the bad food. When you see the countries that people are not empowered and oppressed and suffering, is where people have no trust with each other. And I think that's what's happening in America, where trust is broke down in a way, it's a systemic way. The media is implanting this distrust between people. It could be as benign as they want to get more clicks and people like the shocking stories, but I don't know why there's such an effort of breaking trust between people, isolating people from each other so they cannot work together. And that is so scary because look at North Korea. People are so disempowered. There's nothing they can do to push back their government.
You have a story in your book about your time in New York and a time that you were robbed.
Mm-hmm.
When that happened, what was it like here, and what would it have been like if you were in North Korea?
So it was the first year of pandemic in August, in the summer, during the daytime afternoon. One day I was walking on the Michigan Avenue in Chicago in front of my son. These few black ladies come and punching me and took my wallet away. And I was trying to call the police and get help. And people were blocking me to calling the police on these thieves and calling me I'm a racist because I'm trying to get help. I think at the moment when I really realized maybe I don't even know. People were so brainwashed in a way they cannot think for themselves. Obviously, I was the one victim getting robbed. People on the street, only thing they could see was my skin color and this thief's skin color. Because these thieves were African American people, they thought they cannot be the oppressor. They cannot be a bad guy. Because I'm Asian, now I'm considered as a white passing person in America. They thought I could not be a victim. Therefore, I don't deserve justice. And this is very concerning. I do think this is beyond any, on my imagination at least, any healthy society can function this way. And how the crowd just gone mad. This is the madness of the crowd. People are they lost any sense of justice, any sense of common sense. And I think it's keep getting worse in the big cities, at least right now, living here.
In North Korea, I would guess that
Mm-hmm.
the reaction might have been different, only in that the reason for people's inaction would have been fear that the government would look disfavorably upon that and take it out on them. Here, it's not the government, it's other people that I think make people afraid. When you see that, again, does that alarm you in some ways, that we're all becoming only interested in our own self-preservation and not each other?
So it's concerning in a way how people don't understand how the dictatorship works, right? Most people understand dictatorship in a way it's called a physical dictatorship, right? The states make you not able to travel. You don't have the freedom of movement. You don't have freedom of speech. You don't have freedom of gathering around to protest. But people don't understand the second part of dictatorship is called emotional dictatorship, or the dictatorship of the mind. It's a mind control. That begins way before the physical dictatorship, where the George Orwell spoke about the double think, right? People can hold two contradicting ideas at the same time. Like I was in North Korea looking at dead bodies every single day. People were starving to death, and dead bodies are literally flowing around my river. But at the same time, I still believe that I had nothing to envy in the world because I was living in a socialist paradise. And in America, I feel that a lot of people have this double think right now. They think somehow they live in a most free society where so much information is available ready, but then they don't understand how brainwashed they are. Like believing that somehow one group of people cannot ever be the bad guys. and able to see people, this like binary ways that this is oppressor group, this is oppressed group. And so many people in America, in a way, became like North Koreans. And all my friends at Columbia, at least like literally 99% of them believe there's no problem believing that men can be a woman, women can be a man. And they truly believe that they can think for themselves too. So this trend of this like dictatorial mind already began in America. I think that's what's scary.
From when you first arrived in the United States to now, would you characterize our condition here as better or worse if we were to compare it with North Korea?
Oh, it became so worse. I mean, literally the day and night difference. I came to America early 2016, starting at Columbia in January 2016. I mean, safety-wise, there's not in comparison. Like New York right now, there's literally hundred thousands of illegal migrants just walking around, selling drugs and nothing. There's no justice. There's no rule of law. The rule of law collapsed in New York City right now. It was not like that in 2016, obviously not. But not only that, also I feel like COVID really showed me what was capable of the American government. Right? We were making fun of North Korean regime, demanding North Korean men having all the same haircut as Kim Jong-un. I still remember the American mainstream media were making fun of the North Korean regime. How on earth a government demands what kind of haircut people can have, right? That degree of the control and micromanagement. And when I came to America, I mean, during the pandemic, I saw that literally government controls. If you have a vaccine, otherwise you cannot go to work. You have to do your job. You cannot leave your door unless you put a mask on. And not only that, I still remember going to a restaurant. Obviously, you have to get a vaccine card to go to a restaurant. And then from the entry point to sitting in your table, you have to wear a mask and sit in the table. Otherwise, you cannot enter the restaurant. And then once you sit in your table, you can take off your mask. So I was like, so somehow the virus doesn't travel if you sit down in the restaurant. It only just works somehow when you're in this gate and walking there 1 meter. And American government was able to enforce all that nonsensical law to the people. And people had no problem in New York City, Chicago, accepting them and enforcing them to other people. Literally, I remember I had a 2-year-old at the time when the pandemic broke out, and I could not put a mask on my child. Like he was 2, he could not really even talk any words yet. And the other moms here at the playgroup told their nannies, "Don't play with my son," because my son was not wearing a mask, and he was like 2 years old at the time. And I think it's just so unbelievable how much people trusting their government and don't ask questions if this is a just thing or not.
So would I be safe in comparing this, Yeonmi, that in North Korea you don't question the government because the government might kill you if you do question the government. In the United States during the pandemic, we didn't question the government because we assumed they know so much that the virus would kill us. Is that kind of the same thing?
I do think there were people questioning it, but they were all banned, right? I was shadow banned on Twitter and every social media account. So I guess we were not able to hear these voices in mainstream media. And only voices we were allowed to hear were all this one narrative that was coming out from the mainstream media. And then living in the big city, it feels like everybody thought the same way, but I'm sure that wasn't the case. But I do think that there's a lot of Americans have a tendency to believe government at the face value. And I think that's very scary to me because the worst thing for a human being to me was corruption in the government. Nothing it should be more scared of other than their own government, because my biggest threat in my life was my own government in North Korea. And I don't think a lot of people in America understand the threat of their own government to their own liberty and freedom.
We were taught, I'm looking at the general age of most people in this room, we grew up actually with an education system that was already teaching us that the government is in the famous words of Ronald Reagan, here to help us. And we were supposed to trust it. And I think there's a large generation or two in America that it feels very foreign to ask just simply legitimate questions, especially since now if you do that to the wrong people, you get shouted down and chastised for doing so. What's your advice to us?
I think so this is the thing. When I came to America, the most common question I got from people was why there is no revolution inside North Korea. Some people will ask me bluntly, like, are you guys all dumb or something? Why you guys are not rising up over the last 80 years of this oppression of one family, the Kim dictatorship? And the reason is if you stand up, you're not only risking your life, you're risking 8 generations of your life, your entire family, for both of your father and mother sides. When there's a one high-ranking official escaped, literally more than 30,000 people got punished because of this guilt by association, like collective guilt system that North Korea has. But in America right now, you do stand up, you get chastised, you get called a racist and conspiracy theorist. But the consequences are not that big. And I think that's why I understand this is the time to stand up against what we still believe that is not just. And because even though there are things to pay, you might get fired, you might get isolated from your friends, but the price that you are paying for our belief right now is not that big. When it comes to the North Korean case, really that's when you realize you can never fight back, because to the North Korean people right now, they are so oppressed to the point they don't even know they are slaves. And if you don't know you're a slave, how do you fight to be free? At least in America right now, we know that there is a line that told to us, and there is a people trying to control us. So I really believe this is a time to fight back. And I don't think that we have that much time left, honestly. And that's why I'm trying my best right now every day to wake up American people to see what's happening in this country.
I find it fascinating that you have used your experience, which any of us here would say you deserve to be bitter and think mankind is terrible and whatever. And then you come here and you see some of these echoes from North Korea that you would just throw your hands up and say, we're done. And yet you've done exactly the opposite. And I hope that you are extremely successful in convincing people. I know anybody of your stature, as far as public speaking about these things, gets a lot of flack and a lot of bad publicity on all social medias and all that kind of thing. What is it that keeps you going?
I think it's to me, almost like being optimistic or pessimistic is irrelevant. What's the right thing to do? And also, right now, to me, is that where do I go, right? When I was escaping from North Korea, in a way, I was lucky. I at least had some place to escape to, which was America or South Korea. But without America, I mean, where do we go? There's no place left in the world that we can go be free like this place. And that's why I understand America as the last hope for myself and for humanity. I think people really don't understand, the American people don't understand what America means to the entire humanity. It's not just the cliche thing to say this country is a beacon of hope. In what nation a North Korean can come here, has nobody, no friends come here, can write 2 books, can go to Ivy League school, can be a mom and achieve all of this. In South Korea, even though I was the same Korean as South Koreans, with a South Korean passport, I was heavily discriminated. I could not join South Korean army. There were jobs that I couldn't get because of my birthplace. I was still penalized because of my birthplace. America is the only exceptional nation that gives a home to a new person that as long as they want to accept the value of this nation. And I think that is such an unusual thing, and that's why when I get so upset when people say America is racist, like you have no idea what racism is like on other countries. This is the by far the most tolerant nation that we've ever found as a humanity collectively. And this system of American system has that kind of flexibility to fix this stuff, right? Progress this stuff. And that's why I believe in American system, how much it got better. So like that's why, because I really know the uniqueness of America and how great this system is. And I really believe in America. I don't know how to show my faith in America to other people. And it saddens me when other people cannot see that. I really believe that more American people need to travel around the world and see how unique, how good this country is really.
Couldn't agree more. Ms. Yeonmi Park, thank you so much for taking some time to share with us tonight.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for listening.